A House committee this week approved a subpoena for a pro-Beijing billionaire who is suspected of bankrolling the organized protest.
America, Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna just caught Minnesota Governor Tim Walz in the ultimate lie. Luna just dropped a subpoena on a pro-Beijing billionaire living in Shanghai who bankrolled the Minnesota riots.
So Neville Roy Singham is a known Chinese billionaire. He spends most of his time actually in China and has been known to funnel efforts and funding into the United States.
We followed the money from Soros to Shanghai, and what we found is pretty interesting. Tim Walz didn't just visit China. He took over 30 trips there, including honeymooning during the Tiananmen Square anniversary. And those trips potentially funded by the CCP-linked scholarship program.
This specifically is being funded by an individual by the name of Neville Singham, who actually made his money by pushing communist Chinese propaganda. He's now funding and the guy behind all of these protests.
The Minnesota protests weren't organic. They're paid for by China through a billionaire who made his fortune pushing communist propaganda. What is up, guys? Tyson DeLaCruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. Let me show you exactly how China weaponized Tim Walz to create chaos in American cities. Let's start by shredding this quote-unquote Midwest dad facade that Timmy Tampon Walz has been hiding behind. They want you to think he's just a guy in a flannel shirt who coaches football and eats hot dogs. But this man has spent more times in the halls of Beijing than in the suburbs of his own state.
The question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
He misspoke about being in China during Tiananmen Square. You don't accidentally misremember being in a country during one of the most significant massacres in modern history. That's not a mistake. That's a lie he got caught in.
Is it true also, I know on your campaign that you had admitted to visiting China anywhere from 15 to 30 times, sir? Yes or no, please?
I did live in China. And
No, visiting, sir, in addition to living there and in addition to having,
That's correct.
And for those of you that don't know, get this, he honeymooned in China during the Tiananmen Square anniversary. Who does that? Who chooses to honeymoon in a communist country during an anniversary of a massacre? Someone who's either completely tone deaf or completely compromised. Those trips were potentially funded by CCP-linked scholarship programs, so China was paying for Tim Walz to visit, building a relationship, potentially creating leverage. This, my friends, is how foreign intelligence works. You don't just recruit people with bundles of cash. You build relationships over decades.
The Department of Homeland Security, sir, just to you, so that you're tracking, actually had an internal memo that was released that stated that the government of China considered you a prime target for influence operations.
Let that sink in. Our own Department of Homeland Security identified Timmy Tampon Walz as a prime target for Chinese influence operations. And what did he do? He kept going to China. He kept building relationships. He kept taking their money.
During your time in Congress that you filed for a $5 million earmark that actually was secured, $2 million of it went to the Harmel Institute that actually collaborated with the Wuhan Institute.
That Wuhan Institute. So Tim Walz, who's been identified as a Chinese influence target, directed American taxpayer money to an institute that collaborated with the lab at the center of the C-19 pandemic. And we're supposed to believe that this is all just a simple coincidence. This, my friends, is how China operates. They identify vulnerable, soft politicians, build relationships with them over decades, fund their trips. Then when those politicians have power, they direct American resources to Chinese interests. Now, let me introduce you allegedly to the man funding the chaos in Minnesota, Neville Roy Singham. This is a billionaire who lives in Shanghai, made his fortune pushing communist China propaganda, and now allegedly funnels that money into American protest movements.
According to the House Oversight Committee, they tell News Nation, he will be called to testify about his ties to the CCP, his funding of nonprofits, anti-Israel groups, protests on college campuses, and at least one of the groups connected to these Los Angeles protests.
Singham sold his company in 2017 for close to $1 billion. Then he moved to Shanghai and started funding organizations like People's Forum in New York City to the tune of millions and millions of dollars. And the People's Forum has a deep personal overlap with the Party of Socialism and Liberation, the communist political party organizing the anti-ICE protests in Minnesota. This may or may not be just conspiracy theory here, but Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna has officially subpoenaed Neville Singham. She's calling him to testify about his funding of these particular protest operations.
But we did have a bipartisan meeting supported by both Democrat and Republican subpoena issued out of oversight to Singham yesterday. And so he will be compelled to come before Congress, and if he does not, we will hold him in contempt.
Singham is not a registered foreign agent, even though he should be. He's violating FARA by funneling Chinese money into American political operations without registering. That is a federal crime. Let me break down allegedly how this operation works. Because rioting and protesting is a business. It has a CEO, that's potentially Singham. It has a board of directors, that's Soros and other billionaire funders. And it has local branch managers, aka like Tim Walz, and these other blue state governors.
He has over, I believe it's 12 different groups that he's funding, one of which actually has ties to the Salt Lake City queer group that was responsible or being looked at for the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And so what we're finding is these organizations specifically that are focusing on issues that are dividing us, whether it's based on race or class.
And here's the genius of the operation. They use real issues to create chaos. They take legitimate concerns about immigration enforcement and weaponize them to create riots and protests that destabilize American cities.
You actually look at the social organization that's putting out these flyers. It's the Party for Socialism and Liberation, which is, and I kid you not, the actual Communist Party. So they're using Hispanics, they're using illegal immigrants, they're trying to hype people up thinking that they care, but they don't care.
China has studied how to destabilize countries from within. You don't invade with tanks and massive weapons. You fund protest movements, fund politicians, create chaos, undermine institutions, control social media, and watch the country tear itself apart. And Tim Walz, the local facilitator, he creates sanctuary policies that protect illegal immigrants from deportation. He refuses to cooperate with ICE. He lets riots burn his city and towns for days without calling in the National Guard. And when federal agents have to conduct operations in his state, he acts shocked that things get dangerous. Now, let me show you how this connects to the Minnesota riots and protests. The protests against ICE weren't spontaneous. We've seen this style over and over again. They're organized by the Party of Socialism and Liberation, potentially the same group funded by Singham.
Straight up, the LA riots have been organized by an organization dubbed PSL, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, funded by billionaire Chinese activist Neville Singham.
The LA riots, the Minnesota riots, same funding source, same organizational structure, same signs, same tactics. This is a coordinated operation funded by China to create chaos in American cities.
We actually just yesterday referred both the AG and Tim Walz to the Department of Justice for investigation, obviously obstructing federal law and intentionally turning down what they knew as fraud as a part of their position to protect taxpayers and also prevent fraudulent theft of our American taxpayer dollars.
Luna isn't just making accusations, she's filing criminal referrals, and the DOJ has confirmed receipts of those letters. Watch what happens when Luna confronts Walz directly about speaking at a rally organized by Chinese-funded groups.
Mr. Walz, that if you truly do uphold the American ideologies and perspectives on the Constitution, you should not be speaking at that rally. As of right now, I've authorized a letter to be sent to my office to the President of the United States to rescind millions of dollars in funding that we know are going to the No Kings protests that were authorized and basically given under the last administration. That is what Congress is supposed to do, not point fingers, not blame people, but actually ensure that the American people are protected.
That, my friends, is the moment Timmy Tampon Walz realizes that he was potentially caught. He can't defend speaking at a rally funded by Chinese communist money. He just rolls his eyes and hopes nobody notices. Now, here's where you, the audience, come in. America, we're digging deeper into this operation, following the money. We're tracking the particular connections, and we need your help. If you have any tips or additional leads on how these protest operations are funded, who's organizing them, how they get organized, who's paying who, or how the money flows from China to American streets, send all your tips and leads to tips.tysondelacruz@gmail.com. Again, that is tips.tysondelacruz@gmail.com. This isn't about one billionaire or one governor. This is infrastructure for destabilizing America from within. And the more that we expose it, the harder it becomes for them to operate. Luna is doing her part by subpoenaing Singham and referring Walz to the DOJ. But we need to keep the pressure on, because here's what they're counting on. They're counting on us to not pay attention. They're counting on you to believe that Timmy Tampon Walz is just a Midwest guy. They're counting on you to think these protests are organic grassroots movements instead of paid operations potentially funded by China. America, Tim Walz isn't a Midwest dad. He's China's American asset. Over 30 trips to China, potentially funded by CCP-linked programs, identified by DHS as a prime target for Chinese intelligence operations, directing taxpayer money to Wuhan-connected institutes. And now he's the local branch manager for a Chinese billionaire's riot operation. Neville Singham lives in Shanghai, made his fortune pushing communist propaganda, and funnels millions into American protest movements. This is how color revolutions work. They don't invade with tanks. They fund with chaos from within. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna is exposing the entire operation. She's not backing down, and neither should you. Rioting is a business. It has a CEO, board of directors, and local branch managers. We're seeing it in Minnesota. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.